Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for Avatar: The Way of Water. And as I said in my review, it's been a couple of hours since I've seen the movie because of the fact that this is a 3-hour long movie, and that is basically the entirety of the afternoon. And I also had to get up a couple of times in order to go to the bathroom and refill my drink and all that stuff. You know how it goes. So this took basically the entirety of the afternoon. And after I was done with the movie, I instantly walked my dog. And afterwards, when I was done with that, when I got home, I ate. So it's been some time, okay? So I'm trying my best from memory to talk about this movie, but it's just, I also took out a lot from the actual notes that I took, because a lot of it is just like water training that we get. Anyway, let's get into it. So it has been a long time since the first movie, about 16 years or so, because the oldest son that Jake and Neytiri have is 16 years old. And I do like the fact that they kind of make the real world time work as well, looking at the fact that it has been a long time since our last visit to Pandora from 2009 to 2022, and the fact that the movie actually does that as well, I will compliment the movie on. Anyway, so yes, the movie starts off with the birth of the first song, Neteyam, and also they adopted the daughter Kiri, who is Grace's daughter, and it's a mystery of how she came to be, and that is a little bit of an issue that I have with this movie, but we have planned sequels, so it's less of an issue for me, because I don't think they're gonna throw that plot line away, because where does Kiri come from? Never gets censored. Never gets censored at all. We get a scene with Grace later on, and Kiri is who's my dad? And then she is short circuit. So it's we never get an answer for that one. But maybe in the future movies, who's to say? And then afterwards, later on, they have 4 kids, because apparently Jake and Neytiri got busy and made 2 more kids for the family to 4. And also there's a kid in the village as well, a human, because obviously at the end of the last movie, humans were banned except for a couple who were allowed to stay. Obviously Norm was part of that, but I didn't talk about him because he doesn't necessarily he appears from time to time in the movie, which is nice, but he's not really a main character in the movie. But Spider was one of the people that was allowed to stay, and he is basically the same age as their children, so it works with the whole raising kids thing. So then we get to see their growing up and all that stuff. Then afterwards we have a bit of date night. However, that gets interrupted when the Sky people return, because at the end of the last movie it was stated this is not over, and it turns out it is not over. And the first thing that the humans do is basically burn down the forest so that they could put down their base of operations. And after the humans are back, we jump to 1 year later, and Quaritch wakes up. He is back, however, he is in a Na'vi body, but he's not really back. He is kind of back, but also not really back, because of the fact that apparently Quaritch, before the end of the first movie, was ordered to put his memory, back up his memory. So that is basically what the Quaritch that we have in this movie is. Basically just a copy. And apparently the humans have also made this whole train system, which the Na'vi attack in order to get their weapons. Loak is also there, and he wants to go to ground, even though him and his brother Neteyam are scouts, but they go to the ground in order to get weapons. Then a gunfire ship happens. There's a big firefight, and then afterwards turns out Neteyam got hurt. Don't worry, he's not dead yet. And Jake gets him out, and Quaritch also desperately wants Jake dead. That's gonna be his whole motivation in this movie. So then Jake decides to ground Loak, because he knows he's the real knucklehead who caused all the problems. And apparently the Na'vi, or at least the humans that are partnered with the Na'vi, they apparently have Grace's avatar body, which apparently that one still exists. So Kiri goes over there in order to see her mom again. And also we get a reveal at that base where basically Spider is Quaritch's son. That is basically what we get. And also apparently in this last year, the humans have made a stronghold that reminds me of that city. I forgot what that city was called, but it's in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the other Avatar. But in that one, you have this big city surrounded by walls. I was like, hey, it's that city from The Last Airbender. It was the first thing that I thought of. And there we meet General Ardmore, who isn't necessarily important in the movie at all. She's just in charge, and that is it. But we learn why the humans are here the second time. And that is not for unobtainium, because that doesn't exist anymore. They are here because of the fact that Earth is dying, and we are migrating to a new planet. And we have to pacify the hostiles. However, humans are not really welcome on this planet. Gee, I wonder why. So, Quaritch and his team, the blue team, have to go in because of the fact that they can kind of blend in and the forest people might, or animals might not attack them. So the kids decided to head into the forest, which of course that does not necessarily happen. So then the animals decide not to attack Team Blue because they also get into the forest. So the kids go into the forest, and after they have had some fun with the forest, and Kiri was just lying on the grass, which that is a scene to show that she is, like, apparently she is super connected to Ewa. But anyway, it's time to head back home because of the fact that it's, I don't know, the sun is going down. We gotta get back before dark. So while the kids are going back, they notice some footprints on the floor, and it turns out when they follow them that they are led straight back to the finale of the first movie, because that is where Quaritch is, at the base. You know, the base that we had in the forest in the first movie? That's where he is. And apparently nobody decided to clean up after, and everything is still there, as damaged as it was before. Even Quaritch's body, which is now skeleton, but still is there. So then, as we see the fact that there are people here, Loak decides to call it in, and then Jake orders them all to leave. However, upon leaving, they all get caught, obviously. And then it's like, hey, look, boss, half-breed. So, look, I thought with the whole Navi body that we were Navi now, but I guess we still have human DNA. So the kids are half-breeds because of the fact that they have 4 fingers instead of, at least for the water people, usually 3. So then, obviously, Quaritch puts 1 and 1 together and makes 15 and comes to the conclusion, you're Jake's kids. And also, Spider is his son because he went with as well. So he learns about the fact that, you know, Quaritch's son is with the enemy. So then he calls to bring them in, but he has to wait a bit in order for the ship to arrive. So they decide to hide and potentially wait for the trap. But while they're waiting, they're also exploring, and they see how Quaritch, the original one, died, and it was to the arrows of Neytiri. So Jake and Neytiri go in fully stealth, get a couple of stealth kills, 1 each. However, then the firefight breaks out. So now the kids have to all escape. However, sadly enough, Spider trips and falls down, so we leave him behind. I mean, Spider does try to escape, but it doesn't really work. So now that Quaritch is back, Jake has an idea. We have to leave because we are the targets and we're putting our entire tribe in danger. So we have to go. Obviously, Neytiri does not want that, but she eventually caves because she has to. So, the humans are trying some kind of memory machine on Spider, but his mind is too strong. He's fighting back, and right before he's about to, I guess, die, Quaritch decides he's gonna try a personal approach with Spider, and he wants to give the kid the dog tags that belong to his dad, but Spider doesn't want that. Jake also gives up his leadership to someone else so that him and his family can leave in order to protect the tribe and also potentially his family. And we take a beautiful flying journey over to the Sea Clan for refuge. Tonowari is the leader over there of the Reef people. However, his wife Ronal doesn't really like us, especially not our children and also Jake, because of the fact that they are half-breeds. They got demon blood. So Neytiri almost picks a fight with her, which, you know, I would have actually loved to see because she's deadly. She very much is deadly, as we see at the end of this movie. But luckily enough, Jake is able to calm things down, and he promises that to Tonowari that he will, like, that his family will adapt to their culture. Which, if you are immigrating somewhere, you have to adapt to the culture that is there. You can bring some of the stuff, mainly the food, with you, but like the other stuff, you kind of gotta leave behind, okay? It's just how it works. The same way the other way around. If I'm talking about any type of immigration, by the way. White people going to Japan and like putting fish all over cars is absolutely disrespectful. That was happening like a couple of years back. There were like these dumb idiots that were going to Japan and putting like fish on like taxis and stuff like that, and it was just despicable. Like, you don't do that. What is wrong with you? Sorry, got a little bit off track. But anyway, Tonowari is like, we don't want war, and he's like, yeah, well, sorry about that, but we need a place to stay. And then he is like, okay, fine, but you have to learn the sea, and his children will show us the way. And yes, it is very much like the first movie because of the fact that once, like in the first movie, we were learning of the Navi culture, at least the free people, and now we have that same thing with the same villain for the sea. So it's very much like the first movie, but I don't necessarily mind it. Personally, I don't at all, because I love learning about the sea, you know, and the creatures inside of it. Oh, right, I forgot to talk about the little child. Anyway, Took, he wants to go home. I'm talking about in the review. I forgot to talk about him. But he wants to go home, but we can't go home. So then afterwards, we get a beautiful underwater sequence. And I actually had to look this up because I was kind of confused while watching the movie about the fact, can these people breathe underwater? And the answer to that question is no, they cannot. They can't breathe underwater, but they can hold their breath for a really long time. And after I looked that up, it was revealed because they have these sea creatures that you link with. You still do the bond. Is that how you make a woman pregnant, by the way, on this planet or not? Because like you do that to all of these creatures. You bond with all of them. So is that how you like, I don't get it, dude. It's still kind of weird that is also the mating process, but maybe it's only when you have the same species, then it counts as mating. I don't know how it works. But anyway, when we link to like these sea creatures, then it's like, oh, these sea creatures can help you breathe underwater. It's like, oh, okay, so we can't breathe underwater. We're just holding our breath. But also, obviously, in the beginning, everyone fails. Even Jake, who wants to, I guess, show off a little bit because of the fact you got these little sea creatures that you have to bond with, called the Ilu. However, Jake wants to go with like a hunter sea creature instead, and obviously fails. He even tries to tie himself to the thing, but that still doesn't work, and he rips it, like he hurts his hand. Courage also takes Spider with him, and then Team Blue, they go into the forest, and now they have to live off the forest, and basically he's gonna do the stuff that Jake did in the first movie, because he has to learn about that stuff. So then later on, Courage goes to get a Banshee. I think that's what those things were called, and the only reason I remember that obviously is because of the fact that, GTA 3. But anyway, he needs to get himself a Banshee. However, he has this like tranquilizer gun in order to easily take over one, and then Spider mocks him because Jake did it without that. He just challenged one. So Courage is like, okay, fine, I'll do it too. If he can do it, then so can I. Jumps in there. However, Spider did not tell him that you have to basically shut the mouth shut before you do that stuff, which is what Jake did in the first movie. So he basically has to struggle with this thing while it's just trying to bite him, and then they fall off, and everyone's like, well, he's dead. R.I.P. the boy. Let's go home, boys, because they wait a little bit, and then afterwards they're like, yeah, but let's go home. And then he comes flying up because, of course, you can't kill him off like that. So then with the reef people, apparently Kiri is just like has her head under the water, and she's like speaking to the planet or whatever. I don't know. She's doing something, and then some boys come and they mock her because of the fact that she's a freak. And then afterwards, the brothers come in to protect the sister, obviously. However, the older brother, Nateum, kind of cools down the situation, and then Toak goes over there and is like, you know what? I got all these fingers, and you may mock us, but what we can do is, as you can see, I can just curl my fingers together. The moment he said that, I was like, oh no. Look, I thought he was just gonna yell at them, but then when he like pulled his fist together, like he said curl, and I was like, okay, he's not gonna put up his middle finger. I knew he was gonna start a brawl, and then afterwards the other brother joins in as well, and then they get scolded by their dad. Obviously, you know, Jake doesn't like that kind of stuff. The older brother takes the blame, and I think this was actually the scene where Jake was like, you have to stop taking the blame for this knucklehead. So he tells Toak to go and apologize to the other kids. So Toak goes over there to do that. However, the other kids have a dastardly plan, an evil plan. So they want to hunt outside of the reef area. So they go outside. However, this was all a plan because of the fact that there's a dangerous creature down here. So basically, we're gonna have Toak focus on killing a creature in the ocean, and while he's focused on doing that, the rest of them are going to abandon him. So he gets abandoned down there, and then he gets attacked by this really big creature. Also, his Ilu abandons him as well because that thing gets attacked. So he's all alone. He's get away, and he gets away into this thing, and this beast is just trying to get to him, and then afterwards he gives up. But at this point, all right, I have a little bit of a problem here with my notes. Apparently, I decided to write down for a lot of these Toak. It's Loak. It's not Toak. That was a little bit of a problem. But anyway, Loak is running out of air, so he has to go up in it for air. However, now the creature has spotted him again and gives chase once again. And when it looks like he's about to die, some even bigger creature that we later learn is a Tulkun attacks that creature and kills that creature, saving our boy. However, he then goes unconscious, sadly enough, because of the fact that he's lost too much air. So then afterwards, he wakes up on the back of the thing, and he's alright. He's fine again, and he has now made friends. However, his new friend, which apparently is called Payakan, was badly hurt, and he has got like a harpoon through one of his fins. So Loak goes down there in order to unscrew the thing so that it can get out, and now he's better. So now they've officially become friends. Also, while this was happening, Kiri tells Jake that she feels Ewa, the god and the planet and all that stuff. Also, Anung, which I hope that was how you pronounce it, he confesses to what he has done. So Jake goes out in order to find him. They find the boy, and he actually defends Anung. Instead of, like everyone's blaming the son of the chief because of the stuff that he did, and he confessed to doing. But then Loak defends him because he has to make friends, as he tells his dad later on. So then afterwards, the kids are all friends now, I guess, and Loak tells the story of Tolkun, who they don't really like. At least that one, because that one is an outcast. So afterwards, he goes off to find Payakan and ask why he was an outcast. Why are you an outcast? And he's like, it's too hard for me, because they can understand each other. It's too hard for me to say. It's like, please, you can tell me. Meanwhile, the other kids have headed off to the Cove of the Ancestors, and they bond with the tree that is down on the water. And when Kiri does it, she sees Grace, and it's all happy times until she's like, so's me dad. At which point, she starts having a seizure, and she almost dies. So we get her back up to air, we get her back to town, to Pacific Locktown, and then we call in Norm in order to help out. However, his tech isn't really helping at all. So then afterwards, luckily enough, Ronal brings Kiri back to us. So that's great. However, doing that has actually given the humans a way to find us, kind of find us, because of the fact that the humans have detected Norm's plane. So now the humans get ready in order to go to the location in order to be able to just, well, kill Jake, because he needs to be Jake, because he is Messiah to people, so he needs to die. So then later on, all of the Tolkun return, and the Reef people and the Tolkun are telling each other stories of what happened, because apparently they've been gone for a long time. Meanwhile, the blue team decides to attack a village. However, this is not the village. That was, it's like a different village, because it was like stated there were like 50 villages. Also, Quaritch is now working with the hunter who hunts Tolkuns. That's important for the movie later on. But anyway, they attack the wrong village, and basically the people there are like, we don't know. So then it's like, alright, kill one of their animals. Tell me now. No, that doesn't work. And to be honest, Spider truly sees how evil his dad is. Because even though this is just a copy, it's still his dad technically, a copy of it. But his dad would have done the same thing, if not even worse things. Because he's not 100% the same, but he's kind of the same. So then afterwards, they're ready to kill one of them. However, then it's like, nah, let's not. Let's burn down the place. Let's burn the houses, basically. The I don't know what you call those things. Let's call them houses. Let's burn the houses to the ground. So Tonowari tells Jake what had happened, because apparently those people, those Reef people, all knew that Jake was here and where he is. However, they were ordered to be silent. So technically, Quaritch was right, because he had the feeling that they knew. So Neytiri wants to fight back, but once again, Jake does not want to fight back. He wants to leave again. He wants to run with his tail, and he actually has a tail, between his legs. So then Quaritch, after going to another village, he's like, yeah, this is not working. We need a new plan. We need to draw him out to us. So he goes to the hunter, and he tells him to hunt the Tolkun. However, hunt them here, close to them, because then they'll know that it was us, and Jake will be us. He will be ours. Simple. Meanwhile, Toak decides to go to Tolkun, and he goes inside of his mouth, which the kids see, by the way, and inside of the mouth, he links up with Payakan and learns of what really happened that day. And basically, his brethren were being attacked. And I am kind of confused about how this whole thing went, but my guess is the fact that he attacked the humans back, and that is why he is an outcast. Alright, I'm a little bit confused about my notes, so I'm just gonna say, sees hunters hunt down Tolkun. I don't know what that meant. Maybe the kids saw that. Look, like I said, it's a 3-hour movie, okay? I can't be expected to remember everything. I should have made that note a little bit clearer. But anyway, afterwards, later on, Toak gets scolded for bonding with the outsider. You don't do that, because he's a killer. However, it wasn't him. However, Sireya? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She is like, I see you, which I guess means I love you. But also, she's on his side. So, yeah. Because earlier, I think in the movie, when the Tolkun all returned, she was like, like, I met this boy. And, yeah, that's, I guess that is, Loak. I once again said Toak because that's what I wrote in my notes. Dang it. So the humans hunt down Tolkien, a bunch of them, and they even have these weird crab robots. And once they get one that they killed, we get the reveal of why these humans are hunting these creatures. And that is because of the fact that inside of their body, there is this thing called Amrita. And Amrita actually apparently stops human aging, which I feel like you cannot tell that to Lysander because he really wants that kind of stuff. And then afterwards, they basically drop off the body because all they want is like the vial of Amrita. And I'm like, you technically could have taken that, the rest of it and eaten it, right? Or is it not edible? I don't know if it's edible. So that they want to pack up and leave once they've hunted down the Tolkien. However, Porridge tells them to leave the bag so that they know that it was the humans who did it, and you know, that will help. So then obviously the reef people see that and they are like, we must kill him. However, then Jake is like, no, you have to leave, okay? You can't fight the humans. And I'm like, well, we did pretty good in the first movie, to be honest, but you can't fight the humans because it's gonna be bad. You gotta warn your Tolkien that the humans are coming, and you gotta get them to leave. You gotta get them out of Dodge. That is more important here than going to war with the humans. However, Loak hears this and he knows he has to do something because of the fact that his friend does not have anyone because he is an outcast. So he goes against the protest, obviously, of the kids in order to go and warn his friend. So they get to his friend and he wants to warn. However, little problem. He's already been marked. He already got one of those trackers in him. Apparently, the humans had found him and had shot a tracker inside of him. So then all the kids tried to get the tracker out. Meanwhile, Neteyam tells his brother to call Dad because, you know, we need Dad as well. And the humans arrive. So we are in a bit of a pickle. However, we get the tracker out and then Neteyam is like, all right, you guys leave. I'll distract them with this, okay? I'll use the track in order to lure them away. So he tries that, but it doesn't work because the humans already spotted them. So the humans go after the kids underwater. Also, Loak actually was able to pull out the call to his dad. But once they go underwater, also the crabs get sent in after them. So that is a little bit of a problem. So sadly enough, Sireya and Tuk get caught. And also Loak. He also, sadly enough, gets caught, while the rest of the kids were able to get away. However, now that there are kids, the reef people all arrive in order to go to war because of the fact that we know the location, we must fight. However, yeah, you got both sides kids. You got our kids of Jake and Neytiri, but also you got the daughter of the leaders of the reef people. So we can't attack, and to be honest, Quaritch only really wants Jake, so Jake is ready to go in. However, what no one's expecting is Payakan is around as well, and he sees from under the water that his bestie is in danger, so he just hops out of the water and just lands on that ship and starts flailing about, just hitting everything, and I love this so much. It was so cool the way that he just flops around. Also, Neytiri is in the sky as well, shooting arrows, and the moment that Quaritch sees the arrow, he starts shooting at her as well. And then afterwards, he sees Jake, so he starts shooting at Jake. Meanwhile, Kiri, under the water, is able to use, like, the reef and stuff like that in order to be able to, like, attack people. And I'm like, okay, so she can just control she can bend the planet to her will in that sense. I mean, kind of, a little bit. She can do it only in certain situations, but it was still cool to see. Spider also fights from the inside because the big ship got attacked, so he decides to just have the ship go forward. There's nothing forward, and then it scratches up the bottom part, so there's now a gap in there as well. Also, Payakan uses the because the hunter is after Payakan, but he shoots the cable. Payakan dodges the cable, but then grabs the cable in order to, now you're mine, in that sense. And he basically cuts off the hunter's arm because of it, which I was like, dude, really? Meanwhile, Neteyam frees the kids that were trapped, and now we have to escape. However, Loak wants to free Spider because, you know, he's technically on our side, even though he helped the enemy, and will do so again. So Neteyam and Loak, they go in order to be able to save Spider. And I do like how they go with like this stealth attack. Big fan. So then Kiri gets caught, and then Tuk and Sireya also get caught. So now we once again have 3 hostages. One, you know, like technically 2 of Jake's and 1 of the reef people. So we're kind of back to where we started, but now we are more like, they are more in the defense about this. And also, if that wasn't bad enough, we have another thing that happens because during the stealth attack against the humans in order to free Spider, while trying to escape, sadly enough, Neteyam gets shot. He gets shot through the chest However, he's still alive, but dies in his family's arms. And this is why I didn't have anything to say about him, because he's not necessarily a lot in the... Like, he's more like the older brother, the classic older brother. Like, the main character is definitely, out of the two, is definitely Loak, who I miswrote in my notes. But that's just my luck, I guess. But Quaritch has the daughters and wants Jake, so Spider will take Jake over there for potentially a stealth attack, and Neytiri goes into the sky in order to be able to attack from above. So Jake goes in with stealth, and he sees the fact that there's something to blow up, so he throws a grenade in order to blow it up, and that causes a big explosion, and that is when the war happens, the next war, and it's basically just the family versus Team Blue. I don't know what happened to, like, the Reef people, but they have all just disappeared from the movie at this point. So then after a big thing, we have the fact that Quaritch holds a knife to Kiri, and then Neytiri holds a knife to Spider and also cuts him in order to show that she means business. However, this causes Quaritch to be like, okay, fine, don't hurt him, because he's technically still my son. And this is why Spider does what he does later on in the movie. And while I do not agree with it, I guess they have a reason for it. So we get Kiri back, and then afterwards the family is ready to leave. However, then Jake decides, nah, I'm beating you up. I am gonna fight you. So he has a fight against Quaritch. By the way, also before this, I liked how bloodthirsty Neytiri was. Big fan of that. Absolutely big fan. It's like, okay, she plays Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. And they say that Gamora is like the deadliest woman in the galaxy. Neytiri finally gets to show. Like, the actress finally gets to show her skills. And also, when she was crying, I was like, oh, hey, that's Gamora. I just couldn't help but she starts yelling and crying. It was like, you know, she has that voice like, hey, that's Gamora. But anyway, so Mom tries to leave with the children. However, the youngest one gets sucked in, so she goes after the youngest child, and they get stuck inside the ship and now have to escape through the ship by opening doors that are difficult to open and all that stuff. Jake also inside of the ship has a battle against Quaritch, which that was actually one part that I have actually found funny, because Jake and Quaritch are like above the water, and then they look at each other, they take a deep breath, go underwater, and then start punching each other again. But in the end, Jake chokes out Quaritch and then drops him down. He's not dead, he's unconscious. So then after that, also Loak and Spider, they go into the ship in order to search for survivors, and Spider finds Quaritch and saves his life. He's like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should, and he's like, I hate myself, and then takes him in order, and then also like activates his like life raft thingy, like life thing, so that he can go up to the top faster. And then afterwards he abandons his dad, which is understandable. That's the only part I understand. Also, Kiri comes in later on with like these seeds of the planet in order to light the way and show the way out. So she gets to Neytiri and also Took and gives like the breathing thing to Neytiri in order to guide them out, and that I guess also guides out the others as well, because Loak finds his dad and it's like, I'm sorry, Dad. He's like, look, I don't care, we have to focus on the here and now. So they try to escape, and as they get out, Payakan takes them up to the surface, and that is when Jake is like, son, I see you, which I guess in their words mean, boy, I love you, which is nice. So then afterwards, the day is done, and we have a funeral for Neteyam because of the fact that, you know, he did die after all. R.I.P. the boy. But we have like a sea burial, and then afterwards, Jake's like, we'll be gone in the morning, okay? Just let us rest here, and then tomorrow we'll leave. And then, no, you don't get to leave because you are Reef people now. And then to end the movie, they go, him and Neytiri, they go underwater to the place where earlier in the movie, Kiri had that seizure thing happening. And they link to the tree and they see Neteyam. And that is how the movie ends. And overall, once again, a beautiful movie. And I hope I was able to describe this movie as well as possible. Look, this is the first time I've seen this movie, okay? It's not like Avengers Endgame or any MCU thing where I've seen it a couple of times. I know what's going to happen, which will help me with the notes. This is just a 3-hour movie that I was like, what's even happening? You know, but I love the characterization like in this movie. I like the characters, I love the sea, I love the creatures, I love the world. I love it all. Big fan of all of it. And funny enough, Pandora kind of does remind me of Hoenn, because, you know, the first half of Hoenn, for like the first 5 badges, you're very much on land, and then for the second half, you are very much in the ocean. But overall, I very much love this movie. And while, yes, you know, Quaritch is a problem, I do think that the sun element adds something to Quaritch. However, this dude's alive again. Like, they brought back the guy that failed before in order to fail again. but like he's still alive, so he's gonna be a villain in the third movie. Which, by the way, speaking of which, I don't know how they're gonna do the next movie, because like the next movie feels like an ending, right? To me, it feels like it's the ending of like the trilogy in that sense. Like in the first movie, we learn about the land, and now we learn about the sea, and then in the third movie, we face off against like the humans, and we get rid of them. But I don't know what they're gonna do with 4 and 5. That's kind of where I'm a bit like, okay, what is the plan here, James Cameron? Now, apparently, he's had the past like 15 years in order to map that bad boy out, so hopefully he knows what he wants to do. However, I will say I really hope that the writing is stronger in the next movie, you know? Like this, they actually have a strong story. But James Cameron does it again. He blows all expectations out of the water for the visuals. Literally water. So, let me know what you guys thought about Avatar: The Way of Water in the comment section down below. And with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I do hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if you haven't already, turn notifications. Don't forget, check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And I will see you guys next week, maybe. I don't know who watches this and my other videos, but anyway, maybe I'll see you guys next week for my review of the Pokemon movie, but in about maybe 3 weeks or so, in my birthday week that is. Hopefully I'll be able to give you guys my review of Avatar: Fire and Water, which I think is actually what the sequel is called. I'm very excited about that movie and I can't wait to see it. Bye!